Hi, this is Lainey Cameron. I'm here with Soraya Lane, and this is so exciting for me because I've read Soraya's historical fiction. This one is dual timeline, modern and historical, 1946, I believe. And it's the first in a series of, did I get seven right? There's going to be seven in this series. Is that right?
There's actually supposed to be 8, would you believe?
Eight.
Uh,
Wow.
so yeah, I haven't written, I've always wanted to write a big series, and somehow it's just, I had all these ideas and it's exploded into an 8-book idea. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about like how you come up with an eight-book series. That just blows my mind. And even like the concept of selling an eight-book series to a publisher, it's fascinating to me. But let's start with where are you joining us from? Because you have such a fun location that you're in. So tell folks where you are.
Yeah, I do. So I'm in New Zealand, if you haven't been able to tell by my strange accent. So yeah, coming to you from New Zealand.
And let's just start by talking about the book, the first in the series, The Italian Daughter. Why don't you tell folks it just came out, so they're probably not familiar with it yet? Give them a little bit of the spiel, tell them about the book.
Yeah. So this is obviously the first book in my new series, which is the Lost Daughters series. And I feel like I'd been planning this series for such a long time in my mind, just trying to piece it all together. And the main story that really had always stood out to me when I was sort of thinking about it was the story set in Italy. And I think because I wrote this first book during lockdown, so here in New Zealand, we had very, very strict lockdowns during COVID, and we could only leave the house, for groceries or to go to the doctor. So it was very strict. And I think I was suddenly dreaming, with our borders, our international borders closed, I was just dreaming of, being able to travel, and Italy was just the place that I kept thinking about. So I wanted to do a dual timeline, which is a little different for me. And the story begins, we've got the modern day story, which is set in London. And obviously we're introducing readers to the series as well. So you find out that there's been this house called Hope's House, which has existed for unmarried mothers and their babies to give birth and to find adoptive parents for those children. And so we have the story opening with the main character Lily, who she's summoned to the offices of a lawyer, and she finds out that there's been this little box left behind for her grandmother, but her grandmother has passed away. Now her family don't know that her grandmother was adopted, and it turns out her grandmother never knew either. But this little box has been left along with 7 other boxes. It was found beneath the floorboards, and it has 2 clues in there about the grandmother's past, about her heritage. So suddenly Lily finds herself on this journey of traveling to Italy. She's a winemaker, so she has actually taken a job on a beautiful vineyard. And of course, there is also a very, very handsome man that she falls in love with on the vineyard, who helps her to discover her past, or figure out what these secrets mean. So the clues that she has, she has an old recipe, a handwritten recipe, on a piece of paper, and there was also part of a program that she doesn't know what the program was, and it actually turns out that it's a theatre program from La Scala, which is a famous theatre in Italy. And so that starts her on her journey of trying to figure out her grandmother's past. In the meantime, we also have we have part of the book set, or about half of the book set in the past, which is where we meet Estee and Felix. And Estee is a beautiful young girl who's a ballerina, and she's fallen in love with Felix. Felix is from a very prominent family. His family owned bakeries, and it's a very sad love story where they're forced apart. They know they can never be together. He's already promised to another woman, and so the story sort of follows Estee as she leaves and becomes a ballerina at La Scala, and then their story they end up finding each other again as adults, and they still have a deep love for one another. The childhood romance has continued to blossom even after all the years, and so we have that lovely sort of interwoven 2 storylines throughout the book.
And I
Yeah.
noticed you chose 1946, so right after the war, which is interesting to me because you have, first off, if anyone hasn't read your books, your love scenes are just beautiful. I fall in love every time I read one of your love scenes. So I'm excited to read like a modern one now as well. But
Yes.
like 1946, why 1946? So you're so well known for doing World War II fiction. If anyone hasn't read your World
Yes.
War II fiction, it's phenomenal. It also has beautiful love scenes.
Thank you.
But like, why 1946? What made you choose that year in particular?
Yes. So look, I'm still writing historical World War II fiction, and I just love that genre. I love that time period. But I just wanted to write something different, and so all of the books in the series are set at different times in history. The second book in the series is called The Cuban Daughter, and that is set in Cuba during the 1950s, pre-revolution. And it was just nice to try out some different time periods and do some different research and just yeah, I guess I just wanted my readers to see a different side of my writing, I guess.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
phenomenal. How do you, well, you brought up research. How do you research? Like when you said Cuba 1950s, like how
Yeah.
do you approach that? So you can actually write what it's like to be there when you weren't there in Cuba in the 1950s. Like, tell me more.
Yeah. Look, I think that's the most challenging part of writing historical fiction. It's one of those things where you just have to immerse yourself in reading and looking at photos and just really absorbing that culture and what it was like, during that period. So I feel like I sort of, when I'm writing a different period, I feel like I genuinely just live and breathe, as much as I can, what I'm researching. I'm working on my next historical World War II fiction at the moment. And yeah, before that, I handed in my book set in Cuba, and oh, it was just amazing. Like looking at these women in there, beautiful, that the things they were wearing and the lives they lived. It was so opulent for some of the women living there, and it was beautiful to write about it. It was quite different.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And talk to me about the series idea. Like, how do you get the inspiration for an 8-book series? I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I feel like I'd been thinking about this series for so many years and wanting to write, a beautiful, just connected books that you could read out of order. It doesn't matter whether, where you pick up a book in the series. Yeah, I think it had been in my mind for such a long time. And I've sold it. I've sold the first 4 books. I didn't want to commit to all 8 straight away, but as soon as I started writing it, it stood out to me as I knew I had to write all 8 of them. But I am actually only contracted for 4 at this stage. But it just feels like the right time in my career, I suppose, to try something different and to really push myself, and just yeah, be able to build my readership and show my readers, something different from me as well.
And I love the fact that this one also takes you to a vineyard, right? The main character goes to work in a vineyard in Italy. Like that had to be fun, researching the vineyard setting piece of what it's like to work there.
Yeah, it was just so beautiful. I loved that research, and I really enjoyed when I started out writing. I wrote contemporary romance, so I felt like it was almost it was just nice, almost like coming home to what I first started writing. And so I very much fell in love with Italy, the vineyard, and obviously our gorgeous hero as well. He was Antonio. He's just delicious. Yeah.
I know. How can you not fall in love with an Italian hero with all of that romance and food? And yes, indeed.
I was going to say, there's a scene in the book, where they're celebrating after the harvest, and I've got, just this beautiful feast on the table and wine flowing, and all these gorgeous people, and a gorgeous evening as the sun sets, and I just think, oh, I could just during lockdown, I could just see myself there. It was where I wanted to be, so it felt really beautiful writing it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. What's your favorite Italian food? Is there something you'd love to eat that made its way into the book?
There's a few things. I feel like I would love all Italian food, but it's I've got them eating. I think what do I have them doing? Just baking fresh bread in the morning, and eating spaghetti. I just everything about Italy. Just yeah, I just love it. Yeah.
Love it. Oh, I'm so excited to read this one. I actually took a little look at your first reviews because people are already loving this who got early copies. And here's some of the things I saw that really caught my attention. People talk about how emotional the book is, how full
Mhm.
of hope it is, full of hope and love, and also heartbreaking. Several people commented that although it's emotional and full of hope, it's also heartbreaking at times. So you've obviously like really grabbed folks and pulled them into the emotion side of the story.
Yeah, it has been lovely seeing those early reviews. I think for me, it was about trying to really capture that emotion and that heartbreak of the past story that we're interweaving in, and then having that beautiful element of hope and travel and falling in love when you're least expecting it in the modern day part of it. So yeah, I sort of feel like we need these kinds of stories right now. To you still want that seriousness, and there's still that interesting part of the story being set in history, but we sort of need, I think, with everything happening in the world, it's really beautiful to work on a story and share with readers something that feels hopeful and happy and just shows all the possibilities that there still are in the world. Yeah.
I love that. And so you've written so many books at this point. Like you say, you started in romance, you're known for World War II fiction, and those books are fabulous. If anyone hasn't read those, you're missing out. And now you've got this series. Like, what advice do you have for people who are trying to find, what their passion, their niche is? Writers who are maybe earlier in their career than you are. Like, what are the things you've learned that you often share with other writers?
Look, I think the biggest thing for me is just to write. You can go to all the writers' conferences, you can listen to, all the experts talk about writing. But at the end of the day, the only way we learn to write and we get better at writing is just by writing. And I feel that, I wrote 7 manuscripts before I was published, and I feel that they were like my apprenticeship. And I often say to someone, you don't become a lawyer or, an accountant or, any other profession without studying and without learning what you're going to be doing. And so I very much think that we have to treat writing as, at the time you need to believe it might be published, but I think it's okay to just be writing and learning and developing your voice. For me, I certainly found myself with romance early on. I very much approached my writing career. I was a journalist before this and working as a freelance journalist while I was trying to get published. And I very much approached it like a career and something I wanted to do full time. And so for me, I suppose I looked at the market, I loved romance, and that felt right for me. But, things change. And although I loved writing romance, and I still do, there were other opportunities out there. And I wrote my first historical fiction novel, and it became my bestseller. So that sort of showed me that even though I found those books really hard to write, and I still do, because writing historical can be it's harder than just sitting down for me personally and writing a modern story, but I love the book. It connected with readers, and so I pivoted and really moved my career in that direction, and now I feel like it was the right time to say maybe I'll go back to a little bit of romance. I mean, my historical books always have some romance in them, but it's just I think you need to write what you love, but you also, if you're wanting to make a career in publishing, is also looking at what's selling, and where you can fit in with books that are really resonating with readers at that time.
How do you know? You might not even know this because it's been so many. Do you know how many books you have in the world at this point in time?
It's over 40, but I get asked this question and I need to count the number. So I've been writing since, I think I had my first book published in 2011. I was writing shorter romance sort of novels at the time. So I feel like I got quite a few novels published in those first 4 or 5 years. But I've written 8 historical World War II books, and obviously this new series as well. So that's where my focus is now. Yeah.
And of all of those, is there one that you're best known for so far? Like you said, your first bestseller, which was the one that was the first bestseller?
That was my book, Voyage of the Heart, and that was so I actually originally self-published that book. A friend said to me, just come on, just put that book up there on Amazon. It's worth just putting it out there. And I actually did it as my master's project when I went back to university and did a Master of Fine Arts. And I thought, oh, look, I'll just put it up there. And the same friend emailed me or text me, one day and said, have you seen how that book's doing? And back then I didn't really even understand sales rankings or, all that sort of thing. And I said to her, oh, wow, it's actually selling quite well. And then Amazon Publishing emailed my agent, and we later had a phone call, and they bought that first book. So I feel that Voyage of the Heart is probably I think that book and my second historical fiction, Wives of War, are probably my 2 biggest sellers of all time. So I feel that a lot of my readers found me with those 2 early ones and have kept reading my books, which has been beautiful.
Well, you've got a beautiful community. You've got a beautiful community of readers that you are I see people write all the time that Soraya is a must buy. Like whatever you're coming out with, they're going to buy it. So I love that you've built that community of readers who just know that any topic you apply your skill to is going to end up having that emotional, hopeful, romantic, well-researched, but I would say it's more the emotion that people really identify with in your books.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. A lot of women will email me and say, oh, I've never read World War II fiction, but, I'm loving your books. And, I've now now, and they often will read one, and it's really lovely because they will then read, the other books that I've published. And I think for me, it's not so much about, I mean, obviously I want to show history, and I'm very passionate about people who may not know a lot about history, and, finding out more. But I think for me, it's more like you say, drawing on the emotions and really just showing what it was like to be a woman at that time, and trying to show female relationships and emotions and what's happening. So for me, that definitely that's what I always try and do with my books, is really just, I just connect with readers through those emotions, hopefully. Yeah.
And has your own process changed a lot? I mean, 40 odd books, like since you started, do you see the way that you approach it? You were just talking before we started how you're
Yeah.
writing multiple books per year, which blows my mind. But like, has your process, how you approach it, really changed over time?
It really has, actually. I started out being, I mean, so if you're not a writer, there's what we call pantsers and plotters. And so a plotter is someone who, plots out their story before they start. A pantser writes by the seat of their pants. I was very much in the pants camp when I first started out. And so I would just sit down every day and I would write. And that was, before I had children as well. So I feel like it was, I found it a lot easier to concentrate then. So I would just sit down and start writing. And then, I'd think, oh, what happens next? And, I'd maybe go for a walk with the dogs and come back and figure it out. And my editor actually said to me on I think it was my second historical book, and she said to me, do you plot these books before you start? I mean, I obviously had an outline and I knew what had to happen, but she said, you need to be doing a detailed chapter by chapter outline. This will make your writing process so much easier. And I said to her, but I'm not a plotter. I can't do that. To which she said, well, you're just going to have to learn. So she was quite hard on me. And I think that was actually a huge moment for me, because I felt like I could write contemporary romance largely without plotting in too much detail. But as soon as you start having to, you've got your story, I've often got three main characters, and they've all got their own individual story arcs. And then I've got the historical element. There's so much going on. You just can't do it without plotting. So now I'm a converted plotter, and I have a very detailed chapter by chapter outline with every single book that I write. So I really have changed my process. And I don't think I could write with the speed that I have to now. If I didn't, like you say, writing multiple books, I really need to have everything perfectly planned out before I start. It's painful. It's not natural for me, but it works.
How long does it take you to write that detailed outline? Like if you're working on one of those, is that like a week or a month or like many months? Like what kind of time does
I
it take?
feel like it's so what I normally do is I normally write what I call the back cover blurb. So if I've got an idea and I've been sort of making notes and doing research, I always think if I can't write a good back cover blurb, I haven't got a hook and I haven't got the right things happening. So I do that first. So that's like 2 or 3 paragraphs perhaps. And then once I've got that down, I do my sort of 2 to 3 page outline. So, and then I'll later go on to do my chapter by chapter outline. So I feel like I put a lot of time into that groundwork, so that when I start writing, I'm actually very fast with the words, because I know exactly where I'm heading and what's happening in each chapter. And I'll usually have a note of exactly how long each chapter will be. So I know I'm normally aiming for between 80 and 100,000 words. So I've become quite detailed with this plotting. But no, I think by the time I sit down to do the chapter outline, I would usually take probably 2 weeks on it, I'd say, just to really try and figure it out and get that balance right. And then I also send it to my editor to make sure that she feels I'm hitting all those points. And I feel that in doing this, it really made my editor's job easier, because I feel that the revisions are lighter, because we've actually gone through sort of chapter by chapter. She's seen the flow of the story and how it's developing. And we often will make changes at that stage. And then it makes the actual writing and editing process easier and faster. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
I'm in awe of learning to be a plotter, because I'm definitely on the pantser side. And I think I am in the middle of completely rewriting for my 5th draft of my second book. So like I'm in awe,
Yeah.
and like, yes, I want to learn to be that.
Yeah, it's not
So
easy. Every time I moan about it and I hate it and I think it's the worst thing I've ever had to do. But when I'm writing, it really helps.
wow. So
Yeah.
talking about writing, reading, what do you like to read? And do you have any recommendations of anything you've read that's good recently?
Yeah, I've actually read quite a little bit lately. I've started reading on my Kindle a lot more, and for a long time there, I really was really only reading paperbacks. But I have been loving Heather Morris's series, The Tattooist of Auschwitz. And I've also just got the third book in the series, so Three Sisters. So I'm eagerly waiting to start that book. And I've also very, very behind the eight ball on this, but I'm reading The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna as well. So I know many people will be horrified that it's taken an historical fiction author this long to read such a best-selling book. But I often shy away from reading those stories because I think it can be quite intimidating reading someone who is so popular in a similar genre or the same genre that you write in. So I often don't read those books, and I put them aside for quite some time. So I have really been reading a lot of historical fiction lately. So no, but Heather Morris's series is brilliant if you haven't already read it.
Ooh, yeah. Excellent. No, I haven't. That's a new one for me to check out. And do you read while you're writing? Like, I've heard people say that if they're writing in a particular voice or a particular time period, that they avoid reading in that same time period while they're in the process of writing. Are you able to do it, or do you avoid like reading something too close to what you're working on?
Yeah, I normally very much avoid it, and I think it's something I've always been very careful of. I think now it's probably not. I think I've sort of developed my voice and the stories I'm writing. It doesn't worry me as much now, but I used to be, I never used to read anything historical. I'd sort of read thrillers and, different sort of contemporary romance or completely different stories, depending on what I was writing at the time. But The Nightingale has been on my Kindle for so long, and I couldn't sleep the other night, and I just turned my Kindle on, saw it, and thought, you know what, I'm going to start reading it. So very unusual for me to actually be writing World War II fiction and reading it, which I'm doing at the moment. But I'm also very much looking forward to reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So we're going on vacation soon, and that is that paperback is sitting there ready to pack. Yeah.
Excellent. That's another one that I haven't read yet, but it's like the TikTok book. It's everywhere. Yes. If folks want to connect with you, where do you hang out, and where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, well, so for those of you who don't know, Lainey and I are both members of Blue Sky Book Chat, which is a fabulous group on Facebook. It's, I think, Lainey, you'll agree with me, they're just such a friendly bunch of readers, and obviously there's a number of authors on there, including us, and it's a really great place to be. You can also find me at my website, sorayalane.com, and I'm always on Facebook and have my own Facebook reader group as well.
So
and
I'll put the links to your Facebook page and also the reader group and Blue Sky Book Chat on the episode page at
look, I'm just so excited about the new book coming out. Obviously, it's just come out, so it's available on Kindle, audio, and in paperback. This book has also been picked up by 11 publishers so far around the world for foreign translation. So it's been really, really exciting to see just how well the book's been received throughout Europe in particular. So I'm very much looking forward to. I've just seen the covers, the Dutch covers, and the German edition will be coming out early next year as well. So it's just been, it's been a really exciting journey. So hopefully I'll be able to connect with a lot more readers from around the world.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Is there a cover you like the most, or you're not allowed to play favorites? Is there any that caught your attention?
I've only seen the Dutch cover, and it is just the most, it's just so pretty. It's just got this lovely, soft, summery pink sort of feeling about it. And it's just, it's just the soft pink on the cover. It's just gorgeous. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing that when I can. I haven't seen the other covers, but it is, it's just so exciting. I've never had this happen before with a book. So to, just know that it's going to be coming out in so many different languages is really exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations, because I can tell from the reviews, people already love the book, and it's going to do great. Well, thank you for joining me, and this has been fun, and I'm excited for folks to get their hands on the book.
Yeah, thanks so much.